Good afternoon. We welcome you to the third of our unit record report updates. I'd like to introduce Carla Idle-Corwin, who is our Senior Associate Director. And also with us today is Becky Phillips, who is the Product Manager for the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges Financial Aid System. Marla Skelly, who is our Associate Director here at WASAC, and my name again is Ann Voiles. With that, I'd like to turn the program over to Carla.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you are having difficulty hearing us, please make sure you let us know in the chat box, and Ann will be monitoring us and trying to keep us on top of things or as questions come up. Thanks to all of you for being here this afternoon. I know it's a busy time. And just a quick brief bio. I've been in higher ed about 30 years in aid-related matters. Marla's been in it for about 35 years, I think. And so we have different perspectives and experiences, but we also have shared campus experiences like many of you. I know some of you are seasoned professionals and some of you are new to this, and so please make sure you do ask questions if anything is unclear. This year marks the 49th year of the Washington State Need Grant Program, and so that's pretty impressive for a state to have such a substantial program for so many years. It's also the 49th year of this report that we ask you to complete on an annual basis. And the purpose of the unit record report is so that we can capture similar data from all institutions across the state, and we then use that data to inform legislators and interested parties doing research with regards to what are the needs of the students of our state and what types of funding are out there. Becky and Rochelle, who are the Director of Student Financial Assistance and the Deputy Executive Director here at WASAC, also use this data heavily when they are meeting with legislators on proposed legislation that may have impacts. One example, as you may know, is we received an increase of $18.5 million for 2018-19 in the State Need Grant Program. And part of that is based on this data that you graciously maybe, or not, provide to us on an annual basis. The other thing we're looking at is what is the unmet need for our students, and where do we have gaps where we can help out or make do advocacy to try to help our students minimize debt. We also look at potential modeling changes because we actually use a very sophisticated model to look at what if, for example, what if the MFI is increased or decreased for eligibility. There's a whole bunch of different buttons and levers that we can push to do what if scenarios. It's actually a very complicated model, but we use your data as well, coupled with those variations to see, are we meeting the best needs of our students? The other piece it provides is a centralized data repository because we often get requests for information about the state of the state in terms of financial aid and students. The timeline that many of you are familiar with is we publish the unit record manual. It is out there on our website and it's available right now. And the unit record application itself is open, and we do actually have schools that have been in there playing around and submitting records and starting to address edits. So we encourage each of you to do that as soon as it's available in conjunction with the state board processes. The final report is due October 19th. Please don't wait to do that. We did intentionally schedule the due date a week after WAFA, so there's no conflict this year. And the reason that we need you to have it in on time is then we have to go through and process and edit and review before we can finalize the data and publish it. So, and we're trying to be ahead of the legislative session because we are already getting requests for data and information and predictions going into, September. and they technically don't start till January. So just an FYI, that's what we do with your data. You can access your information through the portal here at the Washington Student Achievement Council, and you can actually start, there's all kinds of reports in there that you can look at historically that's going to include your prior year's data. And if you're wanting to look at your school in comparison to other sectors, you can do that, as well as look at your own historical numbers. And so we encourage you to do that if you've never done that. Anne will show you where that is later in the presentation. And I'm just going to caution you, Anne and I both have a cough, so if all of a sudden it goes quiet, bear with us for a minute. Our manual is broken into essentially 4 parts. The introduction, for those of you that like to do the Cliff Notes version, that kind of gives you the heads up. Here's what's different, here are what the changes are. Also talks about the timeline, so if you're just trying to get to the quick and down low, that's the place you're going to want to look initially. We encourage you to read the whole great thing, but that's the Cliff Notes version. Your chapter 1 is just going to be your basic information. 2 is your data definitions. 3 is the actual application user's guide, and the really, really meaty part that most of you care the greatest about are the appendices. And here it gives you definitions as to which field, which information goes in which field, the record layout, the edits for what potential edits you may receive and what you have to do to fix those. And then we have the quick lookup indexes as well for both the financial aid program and the report field name, which can be intuitive, but sometimes you have to scratch your head on a couple of those. You will be uploading your unit record report by CSV File. Make sure you're only reporting students who have financial aid based on the 2017-18 FAFSA or WASFA. You do have to have a header row. We do have, that does cause problems if you don't, so make sure you look at the file layout that is provided in Chapter 2 of the manual, as well as the appendices to help you figure out where different aid programs go. The WASFA, as you know, is the Washington State application for our undocumented students to be able to apply for our state aid programs. And you are required to participate in those programs if you're participating, or to use that application if you're participating in the state aid programs to enable our undocumented students to apply. We do have a sample CSV format layout on our website, and it has not changed. Becky?
Hi, everybody. This is Becky Phillips from State Board IT. I do see that there are some other people logged on that may not be from our sector. I will be talking about what programming has been provided for the community and technical colleges that are on the current system, the legacy system in specific. We do have a batch job that runs on the HPUX that colleges run to produce the CSV file, and this file includes students who receive financial aid during the 2017-18 year, and it does include a header row. As Carla said, you know, I am one that reads the whole manual, so because it's my job to make sure everything is there. Thank you. And I don't read it before I go to bed. It's not like to go to sleep, but no. Okay, and as part of our updating and development of the process the CTCs run on the legacy system, we do work closely with WASAC staff to ensure the file is in the correct format and passes portal file edits. Back to you.
And so for reporting requirements and making sure you know which students to report, again, it's the 17-18 need-based aid recipients who filed a FAFSA or a WASFA. You may also, however, have some need-based aid recipients who don't file a FAFSA but receive some sort of need-based aid, such as the Opportunity Scholarship, Get Ready for Math and Science, or the State Board Opportunity Scholarship. So there's a unique little category there. And then non-need-based federal loans, for that group, excuse me, if you do not have a FAFSA, you wouldn't be reporting them. But if you have a FAFSA and they received any need-based aid, you would want to be reporting them.
And this is Becky again. Yeah, we do make sure that the process, for the current system, does select all the 2017-18 need-based recipients, and then also the non-need-based federal loan recipients. Carla?
For your need-based recipients, we are looking for reporting that includes the term-by-term aid disbursement, and we're wanting to make sure that we're capturing, getting our arms around all of the need-based aid that's going to students in the state of Washington. This unit record is reporting on your 17-18, so it is a look back. And then next year's unit record will be for 18-19 data. The programs that you're going to report are listed on the screen. I'm not going to read all of them to you, but just making sure that you see that there are some little caveats there. There are some that require a FAFSA, some that do not. And the students who have state work study do have to have valid work authorization. And the teacher shortage conditional grant will get reported under conditional loans, and that is different than the student teaching grant that was around in 16-17 that was listed as other state-funded gift assistance. Those are two different programs, and we just wanted to make sure you knew they go in two different buckets, essentially, although there aren't any of the student teaching grants for 16-17. For the programs other programs to report, we're asking you to report what's listed on the screen here, making sure that you're picking up any of your need-based institutional gift aid, institutional employment if you have it, where you're funding it out of your 3.5% fund, your worker retraining fund, and again, Opportunity Scholarship is important.
Okay,
Becky?
For the CTCs, both the need-based awards and the non-need-based federal loans have separate processing table entries in FAM. They are all on the CIS/WAT processing table. So there's categories for all of the different awards. And in our documentation, when that becomes available, you can refer to that to see where a particular aid program needs to fall. And it does kind of fall similar to, well, it would put them in the correct category based on the instructions on the unit record manual from the Washington Student Achievement Council. Carla?
We are asking that you report your basic food, employment, and training benefits recipients on the unit record as well, and if they're need-based recipients, and that is a subset of worker retraining, so it would go into the workforce training fund bucket. And if you can report those, we're asking you to do so. Some colleges have different business practices that may prohibit that, but I think the majority of you use the system.
Right. For the Defect award codes, they would go on the entry on the processing table called WCC 150-workforce. I'm not going to spell it all out. I'll try to say it. But there is a category for that. And in the past, I'm glad this is kind of showcased because we have, and I'm sure Carla and crew have also gotten questions about where to put those, what category those, the BVET awards, what they fall into. Carla?
All right, and for other programs to report, your federal non-need-based loans. And so we recognize that you may have some students receiving non-need-based loans who are not receiving need-based assistance, but we're asking for, excuse me, any of them that have filed a FAFSA and and or are receiving their need-based aid also to report that. So we're trying to capture, we do get a lot of questions about student loan borrowing trends and history in the state, and so it's helpful for us to try as much complete data as you can provide. Some changes for the 2017-18 unit record report portal. Again, the Cliff Notes version is on page III in the manual at the very beginning. And one other change that we've been talking about for a couple of years, and last year's manual highlighted that this change was effective 17-18, is that you report the full cost of assessed tuition before any tuition waivers are applied. And so that's required effective 17-18, and then you're going to report the waiver as either need or non-need-based institutional gift aid, depending on what type of a waiver it is. And so it was requested that that be reported in 16-17 with the heads up that it was mandatory for 17-18. And that ties back to the fact that state need grant has to show the full cost of attendance if those students are receiving any type of state-based financial aid. And if you have any unserved students that didn't show up on the unit record but were reported as unserved on your final interim, we will be questioning that and asking you to take a look at those files of records if you have them. Another huge change that we're hoping makes everybody's lives significantly better this year is the comparison of the unit record to look at the seesaw data, not the final interim, because as you all know, there's a lot of activity that occurs after the final interim, but prior to the unit record, because we do have a lot of schools with summer 2 terms that are still actively enrolled. We're also asking that you answer yes or no on the race ethnicity data if the data is known, because blank fields are assumed as an N or a false. And for the teacher shortage conditional, again, please make sure you put that in the conditional loan bucket. There's valid input ranges for 17-18, and so the Pell was increased to allow you to do year-round Pell, and then Teach was also increased. Becky?
Thank you. For the CTC system, legacy system, this is one of the things that we have updated with our process. The limits for Pell and Teach grant have been increased to the new limits. Carla?
And in terms of reporting requirements, there's some key fields listed here. Social Security number is a very important value. And if you have files that you're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, please know that those are not valid, and we are asking you to follow up and do cleanup if needed. We're asking that you report aid for each of all 5 terms and the enrollment status that goes with that aid. And then if you have need-based recipients who are receiving non-need-based aid, we are asking you to report that as well. So we're trying to capture the entire resource package. For the reporting requirements, the CSV file, don't forget the header row. Becky's got that covered, I think. And then the 5 terms, typically summer 1 is if you're a header school, summer 2 being a trailer, but we also recognize there are some schools who award aid for all 5 terms. For example, sometimes workforce training funds are awarded over a 5-term period. And if you are a school with rolling enrollment, meaning you start new cohorts every month, or you are a clock hour school, you're going to report your terms as defined based on page 66 of the State Need Grant Manual. They equate to a summer 1, a fall, a winter, a spring. And so that is outlined for you in the State Need Grant Manual. For your summer reporting, I think we probably beat this to death in the State Need Grant Manual about what's summer 1, what's summer 2, and how you link your funding source to that. And so summer 2 would be if you're a trailer, again, make sure that you only reporting aid that was based on the 2017-18 FAFSA or WASPA. Becky?
And to go along with Summer 1 and Summer 2, the process will include awards in the B781 session. Those will be placed in the Summer 1 location in the CSV file, and then included awards in the B785 are placed in the Summer 2 location. So that's how we break it, how our system will break it up. And I was pleased that Carla said that they do recognize that some of, I think some of the CTCs do award in both summers. So thank you for doing that, Carla.
As far as FAFSA and WASFA related fields, in addition to telling us what money you've dispersed to the students and enrollments, we're also looking for additional fields related to marital status. Obviously, the fields that are listed on the slide before you now are really critical ones because it helps us be able to assess unmet need and or to run edits to make sure that things add up, especially in terms of family size, number in college, and if the student says they're married but there's only one in the household, perhaps there's additional follow-up that's needed. So I'm not going to read all those to you. If you have any questions about them, please feel free to reach out to us. And we're going to move on to some special notes about fields that are, these are kind of the common problematic areas that we run into when we are working on reports and getting through edits. Social Security numbers, like I said, that's probably one of the key identifiers. Can't have duplicates. Your file won't upload if you, in fact, try to submit one with duplicate social numbers. And we will be doing comparisons to the CSV records that you've previously submitted. So if there are issues, you're going to get an edit report. And if there, in fact, are discrepancies, you're going to want to contact us, and Ann will work directly with you to make sure that we get it all corrected. It becomes very important because that's how we track, monitor, and measure students' eligibility for fifth year, for college bound, for QERs, et cetera. So please make sure that if you see any of those, you reach out at your earliest convenience, because it does sometimes take a day or two to get resolved through our IT systems as we're matching up history. For the year in school, this is a very important chart. We ask that you not rely on the year listed on the FAFSA, because many of you know a senior in high school might think they are a senior in college because they're thinking current status, not future. And we do ask that you report the status as of the beginning term that they received money. So for those of you that have students transition from freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior, it could be mid-year. And so it's the beginning of the last term that they received money that we're asking you to report. And let's see, the code 8 is always an interesting discussion. And that's if you're giving need-based aid to running start students. That's an example of who would fit in a code 8. Becky?
Okay, yeah, this is this year in school has had some lively discussions over the years. We do have a job, an HPUX job that we ask colleges to run as part of the steps to prepare for unit record. It's SM9146J. It posts the SM grade level to financial aid, in this case FAM. It looks at several spots in the SMS system to determine what the correct grade level or year in school would actually be. And there's more information in our manual when that's available. If you do have running start students that you award need-based aid to, you will need to manually enter 8 in the year in school field on the FA tab in FAM. SM9146J isn't smart enough to figure that part out. It's smart in other ways, but not when it comes to running start students. Go ahead.
Okay, and so I talked briefly just about the family size. There are some basic edits that we check against. For example, a dependent student has to have at least 2 in their household, and then an independent student has to have 1 or more. And similar edits run for the number in college, where it cannot exceed the family size. And again, the parents' enrollment in college does not get included unless a professional judgment activity was processed. And so we're looking at FAFSA and WASFA data there. For family income, please do not try to report dollar signs or cents. This is the one place that you can report a negative number. And typically your 17-18 data is going to be based on 2015 tax and income information. If you did perform a professional judgment and processed it through the system, we do ask that you report that information if that's what you awarded on. Becky?
Thank you. If in our system, if a student is dependent, the parent's AGI and untaxed income is reported. If the student is independent, the student's AGI and untaxed income is reported. And in the file, there will not be any dollar signs or anything like that, so it's formatted correctly. And if it does turn out it's a negative amount, that negative income will be reported. Carla?
And when you're reporting the expected family contribution, we are asking that you report the EFC as generated using federal methodology. So even if you do some institutional methodology calculations that produce a different EFC, we still want the federal methodology EFC to be the one that you report in your unit record. If you have made adjustments, obviously we would want the professional judgment documented EFC. And please make sure that the EFC that you're reporting reflects the number of months that you used for the other values of cost of attendance and need. For cost of attendance, we recognize that campuses use a lot of different budgets to honor the student's living situation, and so please make sure that you're, again, reporting the student budget that's related to the need amount, and that you report the number of months in the need duration. So those three elements have to be for the same number of months. And this is, again, our friendly formula that we're all familiar with. And again, making sure that you report those for the same duration for all three elements. So you need to have, if it's a 6-month cost of attendance, then a 6-month EFC and a 6-month need amount. For need, you do not report negative values. It would be a 0.
In the CTCs SM9738, that process will generate an error message if the need amount invalid, if the need amount is not the cost of attendance minus the combined student and parent contribution. So it pays strict attention to the formula. Carla? And
for the need duration, please be aware that if you, for example, award a student based on 9 months and then the student attends one term and does not return, if your standard policy is to not go back and recalculate everything, we do not require you to do that. So if your policy is that you automatically recalculate cost of attendance, then we do ask you to recalculate all 3 fields. And I'm guessing there's a few of you that are familiar with this handy-dandy chart. The other day somebody asked me, why doesn't it go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? And I couldn't answer that question. It predates my time in the higher education aid system of 30 years. So if anybody has that answer, send me an email. Making sure that for those of you that do clock hours or rolling enrollments, please make sure you fit them within these term dates. And we've provided that as well. And when you're doing your reporting, we're asking that you report your final awards that were actually received by the student. So if you had any funds that were returned that you processed through Seesaw as current, you would report the end result. Don't worry about it if it was money that got sent back to us after the close of the final interim. That part of it we record on our side. And you're going to want to make sure that the unit record, know that the unit record is checking against the Seesaw records that you've reported and that are cumulative, that are real time as opposed to a snapshot in time. And so if you get edits, you're going to get a state need grant college-bound passport differences report, and we'll ask for you to take a look at that. And Ann later will review how to respond to those edits. A big topic has been the reporting of tuition waiver dollars. And again, this was having you represent all the full cost of attendance and then reporting the resource of the tuition waiver equivalent as well. And that was covered in the 2017-18 State Need Grant Manual on page 28, as well as it is in the Unit Record Manual, and again, it's in the 2018-19 State Need Grant Manual, page 26. For state work study, we do ask that you report on-campus and off-campus earnings separately, and that you're reporting gross earnings, and that you include summer employment. And so some report actual earnings, others report an average gross earnings. And so as long as you're consistent in your reporting, if we have questions, we do reach back out to you if something looks a little too far off in the rounding, if it's based on average figures. For your institutional gift aid, that's going to include any of your institutional grants, your scholarships or waivers that are based on solely or partially on the 17-18 FAFSA or WASFA. For non-need-based institutional aid, that's looking at all of your aid that a student could receive potentially regardless of whether or not they have filed a FAFSA or a WASFA. And that's going to include your Running Start students for those of you that may have elected to provide funding sources for them. Other examples of state aid that's not reported elsewhere that goes under the other state funding would be the American Indian Endowed Scholarship, Washington Scholars, Early Achievers Opportunity Grant, Global Opportunity Grant. Those are just a few examples.
We're going to take a look. It looks like we have a question in the chat box, so hang on just a second while I look. Okay, it says, do we include sick time if used in the wages when reporting state work study?
Just earnings.
Okay.
On to Becky.
Okay. There is a complete list of the aid categories and corresponding FAM processing table entry in our unit record report documentation. That the 17-18 version documentation is not available yet, and also the 17-18 SM9738J, the job to produce all this, is not available yet. I'm currently testing it and updating the documentation, and am hoping to have that out later next week. So I will send notice to DERF and aid list when the documentation and the job is available for you guys to start running it for 17-18. Carla?
And so we do have many edits that occur in the unit record, and they occur throughout the year. Every time you do a payment request, every time you submit an interim, and we're constantly monitoring the frequency of certain edits, trying to figure out what we can do on our side to help decrease those. So we do actually look to figure out what are the common elements, what's the underlying problem, and try to alleviate that so we're not editing you to the ends of the earth. And so just so you know that we do have softer edits in some instances, and then some of them are not overwritable. So it depends on the severity and the importance of it. There are some edits that just won't let you go forward. So if your header row is missing, it stops you. If you have duplicate social numbers, it stops you. And so if you have blanks in any of the required fields, take a look at page 45 in the unit record manual. There are 12 items that are have to do kinds of things for you to be successful in your upload. Then there's secondary edits that will process, and it could require you, it might let you upload, but then require you to clean it up before you can hit the magic submit button. So make sure that you're reviewing all of those listed in Appendix C on pages 46 through 48. If the number in college is greater than family size, that could be an issue. If you have a non-resident student who receives state aid, that's an issue. Those are just a couple of examples. Some of the ones that are overwritable where you then would have to provide an explanation that makes logical sense to us. Those are listed as well in Appendix C on pages 46 through 48. So, for example, if your need amount is 0, but they have need-based aid, that's going to trigger a question. If the year in school doesn't quite add up to the type of aid they have, that's going to trigger a question. Date of birth, either too young or too old, will trigger an edit. So just a couple of examples. Becky?
We have included similar edits to what is on the portal in our SM9738J, so that you have the opportunity to fix those before you upload your file to the portal, so that you won't encounter so many edits at that point. Students with errors on the SM9738 reports are included in the CSV file, with the exception of 2 different types. If the student's awards are all 0, they will not be included, even if they're in status 2. And a student has awards that aren't entered in a unit record processing table entry. So they'll get their own special little edit saying, we don't know where to place this. It's not there. So that's when you need to figure out where that award can go. In fact, in my testing recently, a new one, the Para-Educator Pipeline Scholarship hadn't been entered in my test data, so I got an edit on a student that had been awarded that. So things like that. It's to let you know what you need to do to get things cleaned up before you submit your file. The SM9738 produces 3 reports. First is kind of everybody and information about what that will be included. B report is students that don't have any need but are being included that you need to look at. And then the C report is all the errors, students with errors. And a few years ago, we kind of updated the C report so you have some options on how it will display. It can be now be displayed by the error message, sorted by that, and then the students that receive that error message, or you can have it sort by the student and list all the errors that particular student might have. So it should help you correct these edits. Carla?
So a few simple reminders. When you are doing overrides, please try to keep your comments as concise as possible, but with enough detail that we can then look at it and understand why that edit was made. For example, and we are asking that you provide us with the FAFSA transaction number so that when we go in and are trying to figure out if it was correct or incorrect, that we can actually be looking at the same data that you did, because all of the FAFSAs load on our side and it doesn't tell us which one you have awarded off of. Unfortunately, not like the federal system. We are asking that you report family income using the state need grant income calculation, and I know many of you know what that means, but it's really important that you understand that it is not the same as what's reported as total income on the FAFSA, or if you're looking at the total income field. In the FAM system, it's not the same figure, so it's important too that if you have a student who is enrolled less than half time who received child support, that has to be removed from the income field for that particular student for that particular term, and that's a really complicated manual process, but that is actually in the statute. There are some permissible subtractions that you can do, and those are all outlined. If you take a look at the state need grant manual, it talks about, for the dependent student, it's the parent's income, not the student's. And for the independent student, it's the student and their spouses. But if And then if the AGI is not present, there's a whole bunch of fields where you take all of the earnings plus the taxable, untaxable, and add it all together for the parent, for a dependent student, for the student if they're independent. And then you can subtract taxable earnings from need-based employment such as work study, taxable grant and scholarship aid reported to the IRS in their AGI, AmeriCorps, untaxed combat pay, and earnings from work under co-op. So those ones are permissible, but the removal of the child support for less than half-time students is mandatory. If you award a student for any term other than 9 months, you do have to adjust the other elements. So if you have a 12-month award, then your EFC needs to be 12 months and your need would be reported for 12 months. The same is true if it's 3 months. So please make sure those all match. We are asking that you report all known race categories and even where Hispanic origin is marked yes, so that we can eliminate gaps in our research data that we have discovered. Becky?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to kind of go over quickly the steps that we recommend that the CTCs follow or take to produce their unit record file. And these steps are all listed in our documentation when that becomes available. Like many other reporting you do, you start with reconciling your awards with your expenditure data. You run the job to post the SMS Year in School to the Financial Aid tab. Run the job to update academic hours in the Academic tab. Run a job to update the residency status from SMS. There's a Data Express procedure you can run to determine if an award code was not used during the 2017-18 year, and then you can exclude that. You would then update your CIS WAT processing table to make sure, as I just had mentioned a few minutes ago, there are some new aid programs. One in particular is the Paraeducator Pipeline Scholarship, and so that needs to be added to your table if you have been awarding that. Once you've gotten all those pre-steps taken care of, then you can schedule SM9738J. You can run that as many times as you want or need to. Just review the reports and correct errors, run it again, make sure the changes you made are accurate. Then when you're ready, you would run SM9738J in final mode to generate the final reports and the CSV file. You download the CSV file to a local network drive using HPUX screen SM9724. And then from there, you would upload the file to the portal at Student Achievement Council. Carla?
And our tips and best practices is our plea for you to upload your file early, work on your edits. Please don't wait for the deadline. And make sure that you review the training materials. And we do have a test site that allows you to kind of test drive your file before you upload it into the live site. That portal training website does clear out every night. So if you think, oh, I got all my edits worked, and go back there the next day, guess what? They're all gone. So just so you know, that's a one and done for the day kind of a thing. Once you've been in there, when the day's over, it resets. We will post this session and send out a notice once we have a recorded webinar for you. It will be posted and available for you to share with other staff who perhaps may work on these reports but may not have been able to attend one of the sessions. Make sure that you're checking with Becky on the manual, her manual, when it's all ready and good to go. There seems to be a lot of confusion about where the handoff occurs between your data and our data. We don't go out into your system and pull data, you send it to us. And we actually had a lot of questions in the last year on that type of understanding, and so just making sure that your packaging file, you're putting it into our system, and then we take it and run with it. We don't go out and get it from you. So hope to avoid the confusion this year. Do any of you have any final questions on this portion of the training? Everybody's unmuted. If you have any questions, we can take them now. And if not, we're going to go ahead and remute you and continue on to the actual hands-on of the application.
All righty. Thank you, Carla. As most of you know, there are a couple of ways to get to our unit record portal. The first is to use this portal address that's up at the top. Just place it in your address bar, and that should take you to this landing page. The other way is to go to our WASAC website and then look under administration. There should be a link under there that will take you to the particular landing site as well. Once you're here, you can either move directly into the unit record report by clicking this link down under the financial aid administrators column, or if you log in here at the top, it will take you to our general programs menu, which is what you see here. If you land in the programs menu, take a look at the drop-down box. If you have authorization for unit record, you will see it there. Just click on that, and that will take you to the welcome page. This is what you will see the first time you go in to work on your unit record. And if you've been in the unit record report and already uploaded a file, it will take you to one of these other steps, ready to begin, in progress, or submitted, rather than this particular welcome page. Once you're ready to upload a file, click on Proceed to Upload, and this will appear on your screen. You will browse your PC to find the CSV file that contains your file upload, and then just click the Upload button here. If you have a large file, you'll see a processing bar that shows at the top of the page, not on the side, and it gives you a sense of how far along it is in uploading your data. This shows the number of records compared to the total number of records. If you have a small file, it will process pretty quickly and zip by, and you may not even see this. If by chance you have a major issue with your data, you will receive a pop-up with what I call a devastating message. This file cannot be saved or uploaded. The nice thing about this is it will tell you which row and what type of error you have in that file. If you have several, it will list many of them. If you have a large number, it will only show you a certain number of them, and then, you know, in the end, what you need to do is discard this file, because as it's put together, it will not upload into the portal. So go ahead and discard the file, make your corrections to your upload, and then try the re-upload. If you're in the middle of uploading a large file and you realize that perhaps you selected the wrong file, or that there may be major issues with the file that you've selected, you can terminate that upload in process. There is a discard upload file. This is not the only opportunity you have to discard that file, but it is the first opportunity during that upload process. Once the file upload is complete, you will have a summary box, and this, for the most part, just lists the number of individuals that you've reported in each of these enrollment categories. Take a quick look at it and make sure that it has some semblance to your reality. If it looks like everything is correct, go ahead and click the Proceed to Edits button. Otherwise, there is a Discard Upload button, which allows you to clear that file out, and you can start over with a new file. While the portal is processing your edits, it may take quite a bit of time. There is a refresh button here. Some of them will pop up as the portal is processing, but we do ask that you click the refresh button periodically. Once all of the edits have been reviewed on that initial upload, this refresh button will go away, and that's your clue that all of your records are at least sorted for initial errors. Same thing here. You may see a processing button if you have a large file and the process takes a bit of time. Otherwise, that may also zip by very quickly. Once you have your initial edit list, you can filter your edits by type if you prefer to work on them in an order other than how the portal has provided those to you. If you just click on this bar down here, it should give you a number of options. For the most part, the options will be according to these categories that you see here. Now, if you have a non-overridable edit, you will need to correct that record before you can move forward. On overridable edits, you can make corrections or provide us with an override reason, whichever makes the most sense according to what the edit problem is. In order to open that student's record and make changes, go ahead and click on the student's Social Security number off the left. It will open up the student's unit record, and at the top you will see a number of errors. They will be in red, which signifies that they have not yet been addressed. So with an overridable error, you see here there should be a button. Instead of a button, if you see a red stop sign icon, that is a non-overridable error. That means that that has to be corrected before you can move on. If you are planning to make changes, you would go directly into whatever field needs to be corrected. In this example, I'm showing a not enrolled for fall. I'm assuming that would mean that that record has some age shown in one of the categories, but a not enrolled is shown in the record. You would then select whatever the correct enrollment status is and then make sure that you click Save. If it's a matter of correcting a dollar amount, you would click directly into the box, same type of thing, and then you would click Save. If rather than making a correction, you choose to provide us with an override comment, meaning that you believe that the information that you submitted in that record is correct, but there is a reason why it's been processed that way, when you click the override button, you will get this pop-up box. You provide the information in that comment box and then click Save. At each of these steps, if you don't click Save, that record will not retain that information and it will go away. Afterwards, you will see that the error has grayed out, which means that something has been done. If you actually corrected the error, the edit comment will go away completely. But after the fact, you can click this little eye icon off to the side, and whatever override comment that you've provided will show as this little yellow comment box that pops up. At this point, if you still have edits, you can choose to take a look at your differences report. If you've addressed everything, you can click to continue, which then takes you to this discrepancies report as the secondary step. And what you see is 4 different tabs. Each of these tabs shows a different program: state need grant, college bound, and passport to college. And If you have addressed the override in that initial edit page, you will see a Y under the override requested column, and that's your indicator that that has already been addressed and does not need to be revisited. On the other hand, if you have a name that appears in one of these reports but there is a blank in the override requested, that's an indicator that you need to take a look at that record and address the edit or provide some type of an override comment. Once you do that, a Y will show up over here. But here, because the Social Security number is not shown, you would click the unit record and it will then reopen that student's record for you to take a look at and correct. If by chance you need to search for a record, you would go back up to the main menu at the top of the portal, click unit record, and then search, and that will bring up a page where you can either put in a Social Security number or the student name, and then it will bring up that record for that student. On the other hand, if you realize that you have neglected to include a record, you would go back to this original edits page, and along that top section you should see a button that says add a new unit record to the report. This will then open a blank unit record. There are 2 tabs to this record, just as there are for the other individuals. Completely fill out all of the information on both tabs. Then make sure that you click Save. This is just an indicator of the types of programs that you will see on that second tab where the student aid is. It provides you with the column headers, which are the various terms. And then these actually are in a vertical situation. I have them here horizontally just so that you can see them all at one view. The 4th tab has to do with the missing unserved students. And this list that appears here reflects the students for whom you have a seesaw record that indicates that student was unserved state need grant. However, the portal has recognized in this unit record that there is no unit record report for that student. We do require that you would address each of these and that you send back a report to us so that we can understand whether or not this information is still current and correct. The first step that you would do is take a quick look through the list. You may have more than one page, in which case you might want to initially download the list of unserved. But if you can take a quick look at them before you do the download, the reason for this is if you recognize there are students indicated in the list for whom you know they have received either federal loans or some type of need-based aid, rather than address them here, we ask that you go back to that main edit page and add a unit record for them. Once you have done that, it will clear them from this missing unserved students list, because these are only students for whom we do not see a unit record that are reported in Seesaw as unserved. Once you have done that and have cleared out all of those that perhaps have received some type of aid, then we ask that you download the Unserved CSV. And what you will see when you download, at the top, this is an example. I have marked in red all of the fields that are what we call verify columns. The other columns will show the information, the enrollment information that we have on file in Seesaw for these unserved students. And we ask that you not make changes in the columns that are pre-reported on this report. At the bottom, you will see an example of a completed report. If that student has correct information all the way across, there are no changes, then you would just merely indicate yes or Y in that column, and you don't need to make any other changes. If, on the other hand, there are differences, say in summer you showed them initially as not enrolled, but they end up being half-time, then you would show that status change in the verify column for the associated term. And that would be true all the way down the line. What this does is your unserved are taken into account when your allocations are put together through the financial aid model, the state need grant model, and this confirms whether or not the information that we see in Seesaw is correct, or whether changes have taken place that may impact how your allotment is put together for the following year. So we want to be sure that that is accurate. This only captures those that for whom we see there are no unit record, reported. There's another piece to this where those that are reported in unit record, there is a match to what Seesaw and what you have in unit record. That takes place a little bit later during that period of time when we're assessing all the information. So, but this gives us part of the picture. So it's very critical that you provide us with this information. Once you have made the changes to that report, saved it to your PC, we ask that you send it back to us as an email attachment. I do monitor to make sure that all the schools send me back something, whether it's a copy of the report or just a brief email that says, we had no changes. But I do need to see something from you, otherwise I will be giving you a call to ask you about this particular report. Once you've completed each of these 4 tabs, if you realize there are other edits that you might need to address, you can go back to that edit list or click to continue. Now, if you have encountered Social Security mismatches, and this does happen, if the incorrect Social Security number is in the unit record, you can make that correction directly in the unit record. If, on the other hand, the incorrect Social Security number is in Seesaw, if it was perhaps entered incorrectly at the beginning of the year, that is an issue that cannot be corrected from your side of the portal. If use that same send an email button and provide us with a secure email that provides us with both the correct and incorrect Social Security number so we can identify that student, send it to us, and we will contact our IT department in order to make sure that that takes place. Once those are corrected, any errors that show up in any of the programs, State Need Grant or College Bound or Passport to College, if they're associated with an incorrect Social Security number, those should clear. Okay? So once again, you have an opportunity to go back to that main edit list or click to continue. Here we are. We're almost at the point where you can submit your unit record. This is the institutional totals report, and it's a preliminary report. It compares the last 4 years, including the current year, and provides you with percentage changes between both the dollars that you've reported and the recipients. Generally speaking, we see changes of less than 10%. If they're greater than that, or if there's something that looks a little bit out of place, we will contact you. but we ask you to take a brief look at it now and make a PDF copy of this to keep in your records. This is the preliminary program totals report. It will change after all the unit records from all of the institutions are closed. The reason for that is quite often institutions will report non-need-based information because it's easier to upload the entire file than to eliminate those up front. So once all of the unit records are closed, we clear all that extraneous data out, and you may see a change in both the dollars and the percentages, not so much the number of recipients maybe, but if there's some of that, but these percentages may change. So we ask that you take a PDF copy of it now as well as in January, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, in the next slide. If everything looks correct, you can click to continue, or if you see something that causes you concern, you may need to go back to that edit and make some additional changes to your record. If you have any questions at this point too, we welcome calls as you're working on your unit record. We'd prefer to do that rather than wait until after you've submitted, and that is the next step. You can then submit your unit record. A pop-up will show up that tells you that once it's submitted, you are no longer able to make changes to that update report. Do you wish to submit, yes or no? If you click the OK button, it sends it to us. It will shut down your unit record so that you are unable to make additional changes from your end without contacting us. If you find that you've made an error or some other change hasn't been addressed, you can contact us during that analysis period. We can reopen your unit record at that point and allow you to make that change. So please, please, please feel free to give us a call anytime you have a question or if something should turn up. We'd prefer to do this sooner rather than encounter an issue later after all of our profile reports have been created and reports have been sent out. So once you've clicked that submit button, you'll see an indicator up here next to your institution name. Also, you will see the information that tells you when and who submitted and uploaded your reports. You can log out at this point, and perhaps I should just kind of backtrack just a minute. You can partially work on your unit record report and log out. In between, it will save. There are instances where if you're working on your report, particularly those 4 reports that are in the discrepancy, if the portal boots you out, because there is a time limit, if there's no activity on the portal, it will boot you out after somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes. And when you log back in, you may find that you will have to re-enter some of your information because you did not log out, using the regular process. But if you log out properly, you should be able to come in and pick back up where you left off. Now, once you've logged out, you can come back to the unit record and go under your reports, and you will find that program totals report here, as well as a demographic distribution report. And before we finalize and close out all of the unit records, you will also see this differences report. These reports are available to you from the point you first submit your unit record through some time until we, I think, reopen our next unit record for the following year. these profile reports are only available to you after we have done our initial processing and have finalized those in January. And we do send out notices to you when that's available. Just one caveat, with these reports here, we do ask, you know, in January when you're accessing these to also make copies of these, that PDF, because this is the 17-18 report. Once the unit record is opened for the 18-19 year, these reports here at the top will disappear. They will no longer be available to you. You can click this download to select a prior year, but what you will see, I think, are these profile reports. I don't believe these top reports are available to you once that new year is open. Okay, Becky.
All right. Well, now everyone's excited about doing their unit records. So for assistance with setup in FAM, running any of the jobs that we recommend that you do run to prepare for unit record, running the unit record job, correcting errors, downloading the CSV file. If you have any issues, questions, please contact our customer support. And the way to contact our customer support that a ticket is logged, email support@sbctc.edu. We do have staff monitoring that email during our business hours, which are I think 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. So anything comes up, please email, and we'll assist you as soon as possible. Carla?
And like the State Board, we also have resources for you. The program manual is located on our website. And more importantly, for any assistance, please email the unit record at wasac.wa.gov, because that is monitored by multiple staff. So if you need assistance and one person's out, you're not left hanging. Someone else can step in and assist you. We also have our direct contact information below there. So if you need to call, you have a hairy question, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we're going to open it up now for any remaining questions. Thank you all for your patience and diligence this afternoon. Any questions? Everybody is unmuted. Going once, going twice, hearing none. Send us an email if you have one.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.